Okay, whenever you're ready.
I'm sorry.
Whenever you're ready, you can start the meeting.
Oh, okay. Good morning. All right, with that, I'd like to call the Budget and Public Employees meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
Alderman Aldrich.
Present.
Chair Spencer.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderman Oldenburg. We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Today we have, I believe, let's see here. I'm struggling to get my Google Drive open, but we're going to be hearing this will be our last hearing on the budget, where we'll be discussing amendments. Before I do that, let's see here. Actually, I'm struggling here. I accidentally closed my window for the agenda. So give me just a moment. We've done such an excellent job meeting in person, committee, that we have kind of lost the knack for holding these hearings virtually. Let's see here. Madam Clerk, what is the first item on our agenda this morning? My internet is very slow in the chambers here.
All right. The first item number we have is just board bill number 1.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if we had any minutes to approve. We have, I've got it. Okay, thank you. I've got it open here. Okay, so our only item today would be our budget. So no other bills were added to our calendar this morning. So with that, we, after having some lengthy discussion yesterday on amendments, I'd like to turn it over to the committee for any further discussion and or amendments to position to the to board bill number 1. In order of seniority, Alderwoman Boyd, you're recognized.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. I have one amendment in the drive so far, and the other one hasn't made its way there yet, both for reductions. And then I'd asked Paul Payne, he's been gracious enough to make sure that the increases that I had wanted would be in the right form and would get into this folder. So I know he's working on those. For the one amendment that I have in here, are we going to all present our amendments and vote for them, or are you going to have us each propose an amendment and then vote, or are we going to have them all in front of us at once and go through systematically? What's your thoughts?
Well, we did have, so I think we are going to be voting on our amendments this morning. We did present the general concepts yesterday. I think what I'd like to do we have all of the amendments? I was waiting for
one amendment in the drive, so I don't know if
Okay.
everybody else has their amendments in the drive yet.
Yeah, I emailed Ryan. I know you don't have your cell phone on you today about grabbing my, I have my amendments on paper here from, having prepared them, but.
Yeah, you want me to come get them and scan them?
If you don't mind, that would be great.
Yeah.
If anybody else,
Yeah,
does
I'm just
anybody
seeing that
else,
email, sorry.
does anybody else need help getting them formally in the drive or in a shareable position?
Yeah,
And
'cause there's
it
one
might
in
have
my-
house committee. There's only one amendment that we're considering then?
Well, I have 2 reductions and at least 1 increase that I would recommend with the reductions I'm making or I'm amending. But
Okay,
not everybody, I mean, does anybody else have any amendments? I mean, are we talking about 1 amendment? Are we talking about more amendments?
okay, I'm gonna go down the list. Is what we're looking for, if any members of the committee have amendments they'd like to offer. Alderwoman Boyd,
No.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, you have 3,
Wait a
Alderwoman
minute.
Sonia.
I'm sorry. I wanted to refer back to that presentation from the president's office yesterday.
Okay,
And they had talked about the sergeant of arms. And so after I spoke to the clerk, I sent everybody the actual position that the chief of staff should have referred to.
No.
And so it's not a sergeant of arms position. And so it's an administrative assistant position. So I did put in there, I did send that job description for clarity, because I know a couple of us wanted clarity in regards to that. And since the Board of Aldermen has not had a sergeant of arms since Ornowitz, and I don't even know how many years that's been, Kara, what, 7 years ago?
longer than that, because I've been down here for 8 years and we did not, and Arnowitz was an alderman at that time and not the sergeant arms.
Right, so we haven't had that position in that long, so it's no need for that position. But the administrative assistant, and I cannot remember the person name that was the administrative assistant.
Constantine.
Yeah, well, Constantine. So he played a critical role in assisting the staff and making sure that things were done. So that's why I sent that job description to the committee.
And Constantine, I believe, has been gone from the board for about 5 years.
Right. And so it is, so and normally that's what happens on jobs. You start not replacing people, so other people have to pick up those responsibilities. And so I just think as a board, we need to be conscious of how we treat the staff. I keep saying that. So when we double working them, when I see the clerk walking around with a projector and a screen, trying to get ready to get to a meeting, I just think that's just embarrassing. So if people could look at that position, not sergeant of arms, the administrative assistant, to look at that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, so here's what we'll do here. So I'd like to know, I think on the front end, maybe we can offer some, I'll give everybody a few minutes to just offer a few last minute thoughts. Then we'll go through the committee and I'll take inventory of who has amendments and how many we have and make sure that they're all in the drive. So that we can consider them, and then we'll go through them each individually and we'll vote on them. Okay, so that's kind of how we'll roll through the day. So just to round out the rest of the committee on just a couple of brief thoughts on where you're at, if we had any items of clarification from yesterday. But once we get through this first round, and I'd like to keep this kind of brief because we can get into the meat of specifics when we get to when we get to those things. So I'll go through the committee to give some brief remarks on any clarification. Then we'll go through the committee again, and I'll ask for inventory on amendments, and then we'll take votes on them. Okay, so we've Alderwoman Boyd, now Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The two reductions that I had wanted to have the board consider today, one of those amendments is in, but the second.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, we're just going to do some just really quickly brief remarks if you had any clarifications or anything from yesterday. Then I'll go through again and we'll talk about any. You know what? Why don't we do? Okay, we'll just take inventory and do brief remarks all together, because I think that maybe the way I was positioning it would be a little confusing. So
yeah, I will look at my clock and I will go from 9:48 to 9:50 at the longest. So I have two amendments that I talked about yesterday for reductions. One of those is someone's not muted.
Alderwoman Boyd, can we mute Alderwoman Boyd, please?
So right now we have 5 executive secretaries serving 14 aldermen. Before we had 6 executive secretaries serving 28 aldermen. So, I think we could stay with the 5 executive secretaries that we have. That is in there as Schweitzer 1. And that represents a reduction of $171,000 to the Board of Aldermen's budget, $161,000 rather, to the board's budget, which I would think could be used in traffic to replace the fallen light poles that we have. And making sure that those lights get put back up in our communities. I think we need those. And since we have the legislative assistance in the budget, going forward, it just seems like aldermen will have enough support with those positions existing, that it would all work out. So that's the amendment one. I had an amendment two that hasn't made its way in there to reduce the sergeant at arms position from the budget. And so that still needs to be in there. I've given that to the clerk, so I'm not sure why it's not in there yet. But that is not in there yet. And I think at that time we could talk more about what that position is supposed to do. And, I'm happy to change my mind on that. I had hoped that reduction would allow for the health department to hire a receptionist. So going from our budget to their budget, so the health department could hire a receptionist. Those do come from two different funds, the general fund and the health fund. So the budget direct, or the general fund and the use tax fund. So the budget director had indicated that perhaps it would have to be moved in a different way in order for the health department to get what they needed, even with that reduction. So that reduction could also go towards getting those lights fixed. I had been told that with forestry, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, having money for trees, that we may be able to find money from different capital funds for the forestry money that's needed. So that's why I'm focusing on the lights right now. And those are the summary of my amendments. Thank you so much.
Thank
9:50.
you. Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Saunier, excuse me.
What are we do? I'm sorry, what do you want
Okay.
us?
Sorry, thanks.
No,
Yeah,
you- I know you
just
said either.
any clarifying questions or any clarifying remarks? And then I'm taking inventory on if you have amendments that you'd like to offer and making sure that they're in the drive and accessible to all of us so we can kind of see the full picture before voting on them.
No, I don't have any amendments and I don't have any clarifying remarks either.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Aldrich. I'm getting used to all the alderwomans and then we get to you, Alderman Aldrich.
It's-
My apologies. I did that again today.
You did. It's okay. And then in public infrastructure, Alderman Brownie also did it. I think, like you say, the line of Alderwoman, and I'm always the last one. But thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I wanted, as far as remarks, totally agree with Alderwoman Boyd. I think, I think our staff are working really hard currently to try to make sure as all the people we are prepped in, making sure that we got everything we need to make sure that this board is running. I appreciate her sending the clarifying kind of description for not Sergeant at Arms, but for as a kind of a receptionist, secretary or whatnot. But just want to go on record and also agree with Alderwoman Boyd that we need to be conscious about trying to cut staff when staff are already working hard. I think if anything, we need to increase staff so this board can be set up to be the best running board possible. I don't have any amendments. I still stand with my belief that because I didn't have time to be able to get the right funds in place for the building division to be able to take away from the police budget, knowing that they're not going to use it. But since I didn't have enough time and get it all together, I don't have any amendments.
Okay, thank you. So in the, just for clarification here, in the drive, we have, I'm failing to see where the amendments are located.
It's in the board bills
It's in the
drive. Sorry,
board
Laura.
bill drive,
Okay,
Chair Spencer.
budget change from, I was looking in the budget change forms, other folder. Okay,
Mm.
so we've got.
I'm working on
various-
getting yours in there, Madam Chair.
Okay. Broadly speaking. Okay. I just had the two amendments that I mentioned yesterday, fully funding the pothole fund, which streets indicated. And then the fallen lights, getting up to snuff on those so that we're not 6 months behind on those. Those were my two addition amendments. So hearing that, what I'll do is go down order of seniority and Alderwoman Schweitzer, your amendments would be up first.
Over your you're more senior, but you're in charge, so, and mine are cuts, so I guess they have to go first.
Well, you usually kind of go through the committee and then, you know, I mean, I'll offer mine as well, but yes.
Okey dokey. So I am counting my votes here. And I'm not sure that people are gonna vote for either of my amendments with who's here, but I'll go for it anyway. So I will first offer, I guess, amendment number 1, which is the aide sergeant at arms position from 71,968.69 to $0. That is amendment number 1 to board bill number 1.
Okay, Alderwoman Schweitzer, if just for clarity, let's make sure we have the right file. We are looking at, I see a Schweitzer 1.
Which has 2 amendments in it.
Oh, okay.
First one is on, so we could start with aide sergeant at arms, or we could start with executive secretaries, going from 7 to 5.
We're going to have discussion as each person goes.
Yeah, I think well,
Yes,
I'll let
yeah.
Alderman, well, usually each amendment will have people be able to speak on it.
Yeah, so I think we'll take them separately, Alderwoman Schweitzer, separate
Okay.
them out. And if you want to offer them individually, and then to Alderwoman Sonia's point, we'll have discussion and we'll go through the committee on each amendment.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start then, since it's the first one, with the reduction from 7 to 5 executive secretaries. And we can call that amendment number 1. That's under Schweitzer 1. It's the first page. I'm presenting this amendment. It's $161,000 of savings, just a little bit more than that, because our budget at the Board of Aldermen has increased by $900,000 after cutting 14 alderman positions. I do agree that the Board of Aldermen needs more staffing, but I think what that staffing is really important to think about too. We expect our executive secretaries to handle secretarial tasks, answering the phones, answering the doors, helping with meetings as needed, being available here in the office for things that we need done, talking to our constituents. There's a lot of things that are on their plate. However, we used to have 28 aldermen and 7 secretaries, and now we have 14 and 5. So the number of staffing per alderman has increased very dramatically with that already. So I think that is enough, and we should be, and I personally think that is enough, and how we have the secretaries divided now and the work that they're doing has been wonderful and more than sufficient, especially taking into account that we have 14 additional legislative assistant positions coming, and that, you know, I hope each alderman is thinking really strategically about how they're going to use that entire person, which we've never had an entire person dedicated to helping us individually, so that the work of the secretary can be stabilized and can make sense for everyone. I think it's very possible. I think we again are gaining a lot of positions with a huge increase in our budget after our constituents expect us to be thinking about how 14 less members could have saved money for the city. And I do think that I agree. I talked to the president last night. I agree that we need professional staffing at the Board of Aldermen, and I think we have a lot of incredibly professional staff already in the board, and I'm interested in looking forward to the research analyst positions. I am excited about the legislative assistant positions. I just think that we have sufficient executive secretaries for the board as it stands now. And I do not think we should hire more. This money again is $161,000. I'd be interested in discussing the pothole fund or the light fund. Thank you, Alderman Spencer. I had forgotten about the pothole piece. That is very important too, for where those funds should go, or if they should be divided between them. And as Alderman Spencer said yesterday, we do end up having these discussions at the margins of the budget. This is not a lot of money when you talk about the budget. As overall, I understand that completely. But what I also think is that the difference it makes to our citizens is enormous. Having potholes fixed in a timely way and having the streetlights repaired. That is an enormous visible difference that our constituents are going to be able to see while simultaneously, I believe the Board of Aldermen is set up with this budget, without these two positions, to be in an incredible position to offer a much more professional board, a much more professional body, and an improved board already we've seen with the positions that are currently staffed. People keep talking about how much better the board has become. And I think all credit there is due to staff and the president's office. And I think this body of 14. And so that's why I'm suggesting this amendment, because I think that we're in a good place with our secretary pool as it is right now with the board, and that this money should be on our streets very literally, either with lights or potholes. So that is my amendment, and I appreciate your consideration of it.
Thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. I want to take a quick pause and address any confusion within the committee or any, just for clarity, we're going through amendments one by one. And we're having discussion and we'll vote on them. It's my understanding that we have amendments from Alderwoman Schweitzer and Alderman Spencer. Are there any other amendments that we're going to be considering this morning that we'd like to consider? If
I'm
there's
just trying to find where in the folder I can find submitted amendments. Like, I'm in the folder, I'm in the drive, but I just can't.
It's
I
in
had a hard
board
time
bill.
finding it too.
It's
I
under
know
the-
it is. So I
It's
tried to
under-
post it. Go ahead. So if you go to, so I posted the link and then
Board
if you go,
bills.
Yes, under
Go-
board bills, there's two budget and public safety, two budget and public employees tab. One has today's date on it, June 8th webinar. You click on that one and you click on board bills and it's right there at the bottom.
so if we don't, if possible, what we could do here is as we're offering amendments, posting the link to the specific file in our chat. And then that way we're all looking at the same document, because it is pretty confusing where they're all located in the drive. And so if there's, when we'll start with each amendment and making sure every member of the committee has it before us. That being said, does the link work? Do we have the two amendments are in the same file? So as Alderwoman Schweitzer mentioned, they're kind of like one PDF with both amendments. The first one being the executive secretaries and the second one being the sergeant at arms. Alderwoman Sonia, do you see, is it?
It says it's loading. It could take a few. Okay, no, this is just the general form. This is
I could
not,
text it to you, Alderwoman.
and maybe email would be quicker.
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, and so for folks tuning in and watching from another place, what we have before us is we're looking at page number 3. This is the budget for the Board of Aldermen. The items proposed to reduce our executive secretary positions going from 563,000 to 402,000, reducing the number from 7 to 5, which we currently have on staff. So leaving the total staff of executive secretaries the same as it is now, as opposed to increasing it by 2 more, hiring 2. Okay, so Alderwoman Schweitzer, are you done presenting the amendment?
Yes. I
Shall
have
we
been-
go to? Okay, I'd like to go to the committee for discussion. Alderwoman Sonia, or excuse me, Alderwoman Boyd.
I'm confused because it seems that you and Alderwoman Schweitzer are submitting the same amendments for the same thing. Both you all are doing amendments for streetlights. So
Oh,
you're saying money for streetlights, she's saying money for streets. So which one are we doing?
so when we did roll call at the beginning of the committee hearing, I was taking inventory of all the amendments that we're going to consider. Alderwoman Schweitzer had amendments related to Board of Aldermen staff. Alderwoman Schweitzer, did you have amendments related to the streets? Or I have 2 amendments related to
Right.
streets
And yes, so I had an increase in there for streets and for the health department. And you know, I guess as you were doing this, because we're doing amendments individually, if we end up voting on your amendment or my amendment, I don't really care if it's the
Okay.
same amendment. Yeah, that's the.
Okay, so what we'll do here, what we're gonna do first is go through all the amendments, have discussion, then we'll do a round and we'll vote Alderwoman Boyd because there clearly is some overlap in the intention or the function. My apologies, I didn't coordinate on the front end. I just put together my amendments as I saw fit without discussing offline with anybody about whether or not they were gonna do something similar. So in that regard, it looks like there may be some overlap.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so let's turn
I
it
had
over to,
one more thing, Madam Chair.
yes. Mhm.
These have been positions that the board has had a hard time hiring for. They've been posted for a long time. We did interviews last session. We're able to hire one executive secretary who's been absolutely fantastic. And so, these aren't necessarily positions that are going to be easy to fill anyway. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman Switzer. With that, let's turn it over to discuss, to the committee for discussion on the amendment. Alderwoman Alderwoman Boyd.
No, I'm fine. I already said something.
Okay, Alderwoman Saunier. And we can come back, Alderwoman Saunier. Oh, there we go. Did you have any questions or discussion on amendment number 1?
Are you talking to me now?
Alderwoman Saunier.
Yeah.
Sorry if there's a delay. Yes.
No, I just want to be clear. So you guys used to have, it used to be 4 secretaries to 28 alders. And basically, Ann, you're saying, sorry, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you're saying that we have, you think the addition of 1 more is enough? Like that's what her amendment, like she's proposing, instead of going to 7, we keep it at 5.
That's exactly right, Alderwoman.
But if there's 5 secretaries to 14 alders, but each alder still covers double the space, then you're saying that you think that it's a palpable workload for 1 secretary to be covering. If we're saying that each ward is about 2 wards in 1 now, then you're saying that it's okay for 1 secretary to cover about 6 wards.
I might have different feelings about it if we weren't hiring 14 legislative assistants, 1 per alderman. I
But
think with that,
that's-
there's plenty
that-
of people.
But
Right.
when you're a staff person and you work for a board, like the secretaries are the only one that will have the responsibilities of doing the secretary duties. Whatever the assistants do, unless I'm not understanding how our new structure works, which I think I do, whatever the assistants do is really up to the alder. So we can't, what concerns me is if we make this change, but it could very well end up where secretaries end up having to do what they do now, which I really respect and appreciate that they're willing to step in and fill in a gap. But I don't want them to feel like as alders, we're kind of, I don't like almost taking advantage of their kindness of being willing to fill in a gap for the missing secretaries by leaving it there. Cause I know how, that boundary wise is 1 secretary is still covering about 6 wards because they have 3 alders now. So I think it's risky for me to say, well, we'll have assistants. I'm concerned about what the workload could be for those secretaries because the assistants are not bound to do something, and burnout is very real. Being overworked is very real. And I feel like they are working extremely hard now. And even yesterday when I went around just to kind of talk to them about, how do you feel about your current workload? How are you doing? All of them told me that they're working well over 40 hours, that they usually go into the evening, that they work into the weekends, and they were very pleasant. They were very happy. It wasn't any rudeness, but it's like, I don't want them to be burnt out. I don't want them to be overworked. And I don't think it's good for 1 secretary to be responsible for covering 6 wards. Even though it's less alders, we have double the territory, and assistants I also don't know what each person will ask their assistant to do, and it's totally up to that alder. So I don't think it's good for us to make, I'm just concerned about them and their ability, and them feeling appreciated, them feeling valued, and them having the support that they need. And I don't think it's a wise choice to give, to make changes based off of what someone may or may not do, when we really can't say what a legislative assistant will or will not do. Only that alder can say what their person will do. And I don't want to come across to our staff, honestly, as someone who's taking advantage of their kindness or taking advantage of the willingness that they're always willing to cover in their gaps and go the extra mile. I want them to feel like we see what they do, we see their dedication, and we appreciate that. And I feel like the way that you show that is by giving them as much support as they could need.
Thank you, Alderwoman Saunier. Alderman Aldred.
I think I already spoke on it. I'm not in favor of cutting staff. I've already said that. I'm not going to hold up too much of folks' time. If older people want to cut staff, they can cut their own LA if they really want to save money. If they feel like we don't need it at the board to be able to support our other staff and to support this board, you can take the time to cut your own LA instead of cutting staff that would benefit this board and benefit other older people. When I mean LA, I mean your own, whatever, not executive secretary, but
Legislative assistant.
legislative assistant, yes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Madam.
You're welcome.
I noticed we have two members of the board who are not members of the committee, and I'd like to offer the opportunity to weigh in to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. And I can come back. Alderwoman Keys.
Morning, Madam Chair, and thank you all. I'm so sorry, my phone is blowing up. I am in agreement with the 7th Ward Alderwoman and the 14th Ward Alderman. I do not believe that we need to cut from the secretarial staff. They are highly valued for all that they bring to our board.
Okay. Thank you, Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, did you have a thought? I didn't know if you were there. Okay. Seeing none, I will add, I weigh in. I just want to reiterate my concern about the very significant increase to the budget for the Board of Aldermen from 2014 to right now. The increase to the Board of Aldermen's budget is 86%. We have increased our budget by 86%, going up $2.7 million just in 3 years. To me, that's just an enormous increase. There is no other city department that has seen an increase anywhere near the size of the increase of the Board of Aldermen. And I just want to, for me, this isn't a cut in staff. Going from, we don't have those folks on staff right now. And I would not feel comfortable making this adjustment if we didn't have legislative aides that each of us can lean on and have as our individual help. I mean, our staff has done an incredible job, and I agree that many folks, I want to commend Alderwoman from the 7th for, going around and speaking to folks individually on this matter. And recognize that, there is so much overtime involved in serving the public, and to express extreme gratitude for that. But the problem I'm seeing is really just that we promised the voters that we would see a reduction, and we have seen an increase of quite large, literally the largest increase of any city department, an 85% increase. We've all gotten raises. I'm working a lot longer hours here than I ever have because I have the luxury of not having a second job here. Right now, which is different than I've ever been able to serve under. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity to really focus on my duties as Alderwoman of the 8th. That being said, I just, I can in good conscience not fill the pothole fund and recognizing that our health department doesn't have a single secretary. To me, I feel like we all have to give a little bit when we have a stagnant budget that literally our budget for the city this year is exactly equal to the budget from last year. And so, given that those constraints, and they're awful, they're not a rosy picture, we have got to figure out a way to make our city start growing again. or we're gonna be in an even worse position next year, but for that reason, I would offer my support for this, although recognizing the well-spoken counterpoints from all of our colleagues who are very thoughtfully, supporting our staff. I want to recognize this is not anything to be against the wonderful staff we do have, but just recognizing that we've got to make a little sacrifice, I think, rather than seeing just such an enormous increase in our budget.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Okay, Alderwoman Saunier.
I know Alderwoman Boyd spoke about the aide and the sergeant of arms, like the aide being the position that was needed. Whereas the aide and the sergeant of arms position, to my knowledge, are merged now. So it's one position. So if you cut the sergeant of aides, the sergeant of arms, then you cut the aide.
Okay, okay, let's, I want to keep a little bit of order so we can try to get through this. We'll handle that one and the next amendment,
Okay.
because that's a separate issue. Okay, so, seeing no more discussion on this amendment.
I do.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a question. And so, and I agree, we have spent more money than we ever spent in regards to the Board of Aldermen. And so my question is, and I said that yesterday, so we're not doing a just, but to me, with the secretaries and administrative aid, those are not, how can I put it? Those are not the president's office positions. So my question, the president office, how many positions have they filled in? And so that might be the question, because that's what I'm looking at, because it seems like, and I come from the low man on the totem pole. It always seems like the low man on the totem pole is always the one that's pushed to the side and you give them whatever. But the higher ups are the ones that they keep adding and adding. So that's the question. Why are we adding on one end, but taking away from the low man on the totem pole that's picking up the slack? So that's my question.
I don't know if we have anybody from the president's office present here. I am Alderwoman Boyd to answer that question. I'll do my best and perhaps somebody else can add some clarity here. It's my understanding from the testimony Jay gave yesterday that the president's office has increased staff by two additional staff members to the president's office, and they've already been filled.
So what are those positions? Were those positions that we always had, or that's what I'm trying to get clarity?
I don't want to misspeak here, so we don't have a member of the president's office present. Does anybody from the committee with more familiarity with the staffing of the president's office have the ability to weigh in?
Alderman Hubbard, Alderwoman Hubbard or Browning, do you all have connection to connect with somebody there to speak, or?
It was my understanding that there were, if I'm looking at the staffing here, staffing schedule, we have two secretaries to the president. Oh, I'm sorry. I did make a note yesterday when Jay was speaking. We
He's
have-
gonna get on. The chief of staff said he's making his way to a computer to log on.
Okay.
I thought we had some questions.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman Saunier. Yeah, he indicated 2 administrative assistants to the president were added, and those are 510,100. And that's a total of $170,000 for those 2. And then I also noted secretaries to the president have been increased by 1. Grade 15G.
So they had 1 and they added 1. Is that what I'm hearing?
It looks to me, again, Alderwoman Boyd, I'm not an expert here. It looks to me like there was 1 secretary to the president last year, and this year there is proposed to be 2.
Okay. So if the president's office is willing to have one secretary and one, what was the other one they added to?
Administrative assistant to the president.
Okay, and so if they have one and one, so how much dollars would that save that our department?
I am guessing here, based on the staffing schedule, it looks like 80, 60, I don't know, 150 is what I would guess.
Okay, and so, and how much is Alderwoman Schweitzer saying that we are looking at increasing with the administrative assistant and the secretaries? How much is that?
Roughly the same amount.
Okay, so can we compromise to see how we can work it?
That's an
Uh,
interesting concept.
Because I'm looking at too, because I'm adamant, we are spending more money than we did before. And the
Mhm.
staff is doing double to what they were doing. And Alderwoman Schweitzer and I had that conversation earlier because I just think it's unrealistic. We were, I had 10,000, 11,000 residents I was servicing. Now I have 21,000 residents I'm servicing. And so what I explained to her and Alderman, my secretary has myself and Alderman Balmer. When Alderman Balmer's residents are very self-sufficient, and so they know processes and know how to do things. And the old ward I had, a lot of those people know the processes, but in the new areas, now we're teaching them the processes to make sure that they understand. And that's time consuming for that secretary because she has to walk them through the process. And we are getting legislative assistant, but the legislative assistant is on the ground. And so they're trying to work within those communities to educate those people. So that's why I said, well, could we, compromise to say, okay, we need us, we bleeding right now. Because my thing is, when all this money is gone, then what? What we
Hmm.
gonna have to deal with?
Okay, Alderwoman Boyd, you bring up a good point, so I'd like to open it to a staff member from the president's office. Jay, who could maybe speak on the specifics.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I'm just jumping
Oh,
on. Sure what I'm answering.
And okay, yeah, no, I think this, I'm trying to think through the fairness, yeah, that Jay, if you don't mind just kind of clarifying the staffing piece, and it would be helpful.
Overall staff you're asking about?
Well, the president's office. So, I mean.
Okay, got you.
We're looking at an 85% increase in total cost to the Board of Aldermen over the budget schedule that we have. That's
Right.
a really significant increase and a larger increase than we've seen in any other city department across the board. So, the question is, how can we make accommodations for the fact that, the health department doesn't have any receptionists and we have an increase in administrative staff for the Board of Aldermen and Alderwoman. So the question Alderwoman Boyd had was, can you describe the increases in staff to the president of the board's office? And I know we discussed this to some extent yesterday. What I've kind of walked through is we had, as you mentioned yesterday in my notes, 2 administrative assistants to the president's office were added. And then I also noted here that grade 15G, the secretary of the president, went from 1 to 2.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So
the president's staff is currently set up as far as the special assistant to the president, which is me as the chief of staff, that's grade 27M. And then you have the secretary to the president, which you just were referring to, that's 2. So that includes our secretary of communications and engagement. And it also includes our director of operations in that line item. In grade 000, we have a legislative director, which is our policy director, which is Christina Gramindia. And then we have 2 new positions that was approved by ENA for a table organization change to our office, which are our policy associates. So those are really the only two additional staff that have been included into the president's office. All other staff is currently been the same as it's been for previous administrations.
Alderwoman Boyd, did you have further questions on that? So
And so now I'm real confused. So it's not 2 secretaries and 2 administrative staff? Because that's what I heard earlier. So
Are
I'm,
we referring to the president's office or the Board of Aldermen?
no, the president's
So
office.
the president's office has 2 admin assistants to the president. She has 1 legislative director. She has 2 special special assistants to her, and then 2 assistants to her, secretaries to the president, and then 1 special assistant to her, which is me. So
But that's what I'm saying, it's 2. So why is it 2? Why wouldn't it be 1?
it has never been 1. That's with previous administration, those were 2 individuals that served in those roles.
I understand that, but that's when we had 28 alder people and we now have 14. So that's why I'm asking the question. How we can, because I feel that it's always the low person on the totem pole that's always the one that has to suffer. The people in higher positions are always, I'm not gonna say fluffing, but they have it. So I'm not saying previous administration was correct with the 2 and 2. I'm just saying, how can we logically look at this and say, we're not constantly bleeding and this is what we're trying to do? Because yesterday I did say, like with the Sergeant Arm, we were literally recreating a job, but technically we didn't even have a Sergeant of Arms. We had always had administrative assistant, it just wasn't filled. So that's why I'm asking the questions.
Got it. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it sounds like you're asking for one of our positions to be cut in the president's office.
Right, because that's what, and I'm just being clear, because it was in previous administration, that don't mean it was right.
No,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah,
I would not support that.
yeah, because my thing is, you having 2 secretaries, why would you need 2 secretaries? My 1 secretary is struggling with 40,000 people. So you have 2 secretaries. I'm just kind of confused. I'm just trying to get
I
clarity.
understand, and we also got to keep in mind that the president is elected at large, so she represents the entire city of St. Louis as well. This administration is very policy driven. That's something that we stated. We need the help. We need the resources just as well. I explain this to all the people all the time. You couldn't imagine how difficult it is sending 4 people into a lot of different fires all the time. They get burnt out, they are exhausted, they are tired. We have to try to tend to the needs of all of the older people and our constituents as well. So no, I would not support cutting the president's staff.
Madam Chairwoman,
yes, Alderman Aldrich.
just for clarity, and please no one take this as disrespect. I'm just trying to figure out what are we doing here? I thought
Okay.
we was
So
on
what we're
if I could finish real quick, I thought we was on Alderwoman Schweitser's amendment. I know we had the chief in yesterday to ask these same questions, and we had the time to prep and do that. And I know you've prepped the amendment. Alderwoman Schweitzer has prepped the amendment. Are we gonna take up those amendments? We're already like an hour in, and we still got 3 more amendments.
Well, thank you, Alderman Aldrich. We didn't get started on time. We were waiting for quorum. So I hear your perspective there. What we're doing is considering each amendment. So Alderwoman Schweitzer introduced hers. Alderwoman Boyd had some questions about the staff for the president of the board's office that I couldn't answer. Gracious enough, Jay joined us. We didn't have a full presentation from the president of the board on the staffing of that department. So I am recognizing there were some residual questions on that. That being said, just to give some order here and to get us through this morning, what I'd like to do is continue questions on this amendment. The amendment is to cut staff for the the Board of Aldermen's administrative assistants. Alderwoman Boyd had a question, could we make a compromise here? And this is typical in these types of negotiations in the budget to consider cutting from the president's office as well. And that's where that question came in, Alderman Aldrich. Alderman Boyd, if you'd like to prepare a separate amendment on that question, you're welcome to do so. What we're considering right now is Alderwoman Schweitzer's amendment. If you have an intention of splitting the baby or whatever you want to call it, I know that's maybe not a nice term
That's
to use
not a
here, but
good phrase.
um,
Splitting baby, I don't think that's a good phrase.
yeah, okay.
Mm-mm.
But splitting the, I guess I mean splitting the cut is what I really mean here. If that's an amendment that you'd like to make, we can
No,
consider
I'm
that.
fine. I'm fine. Go ahead. I'm fine.
Okay, with that, going through the rest, I did lose track here. Do we have any further discussion on amendment number 1? Okay.
Should I close?
With that, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you're free to close on amendment number 1.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the discussion, and, I am very cognizant of the hard work that our executive secretaries are doing at the Board of Aldermen, which is why I don't think we should go any less than 5, which is what we have now. I think with the people being able to hire their own legislative assistant, I think it is incumbent upon each alderman to make sure that everything that they need is covered by their legislative assistant and their secretary, that they can get whatever they need done and whatever they can do as well. I think it'll be a team effort. A lot of jobs, a lot of more kind of modernized organizations are moving away from secretaries being assigned to one person or 3 people in this case, and going into more of a pool system where it's, who's available to help when, and you work more collaboratively. And I'd really love to see the board move towards that. I know there have been times when my secretary hasn't been here, that someone else has helped, and vice versa, or my secretary's helped people who their secretary wasn't here. And I would just think that this allows for a more collaborative environment. We have 5 secretaries who are hired right now who are great. I would argue that the Board of Aldermen needs this $161,000 less than the Streets Department does, less than the Health Department does. And that's what we're talking about, unfortunately. It's not just talking about what we want, it's talking about what there is and how we divide it. That's how these conversations work. I think this is a good thing for the Board of Aldermen to do. If you disagree, don't vote for it. And we'll see if it passes. That's kind of how the votes work. So I do appreciate the comments and everyone sharing their thoughts, and I appreciate your time and being allowed to present this amendment today.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. With that, we'll take a vote on amendment number 1. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd,
Pass.
one moment. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Sorry, Alderwoman Sonia, you're on mute.
Hey, or no?
Alderwoman Sanye.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we need to have a second on the motion? On
Yes,
the
ma'am,
amendment?
we did.
I'm so sorry. Do you mind, Madam Clerk, if we could, just
I move
for,
that we adopt amendment number 1 to board bill number 1.
Second.
a second. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll do that again. Alderwoman Boyd,
No.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye,
No.
Alderman Aldrich,
No.
Chair Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
No.
Alderman Oldenburg. We have 2 aye votes and 3 noes.
Okay, the amendment fails. Alderwoman Switzer, you're recognized on amendment number 2.
Thank you so much. After the discussion today and the clarification of the role by the clerk, I will not be introducing amendment number 2 today.
Okay. So we can strike amendment number 2, and then were the only other 2 amendments, the amendments put forward by me?
Yes.
Okay.
For me, the amendment increase that I had wouldn't be possible without having a corresponding cut. So there's no reason to introduce it for me. Thanks.
Oh, well, I will clarify. I mean, I do think, there has been precedent made for making recommendations to the Board of VNA to find additional budget. I'm going to introduce my amendments, Alderwoman, if you'd like to reconsider that.
Okay, I think we have the same amendment for the streetlights. So then I think your amendments are fine then.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Alderwoman Switzer. I will introduce my amendments. My apologies here to find them in the Google Drive. As amendment number 1 would be the streets budget for this one, 5110010056600 is what Jamie Wilson indicated was needed to fully fund the down streetlights fund. This was an issue that was recognized by Alderwoman Boyd. Just for some review here, we have, I think, currently somewhere in the ballpark of around 100 streetlights that have been felled either by wind or by a car or some other force that has pushed a light down. With the current, we're about 6 months behind in getting each one of those replaced. And with the budget as we currently have it at $243,000, we will remain 6 months behind and not be able to get caught up. This additional $200,000 would allow the street department to get caught up on replacing streetlights and get us up to snuff on that. So our residents don't have to wait 6 months for a down street lights. For those of you who, probably know, having a down street light on your block really impacts your safety and well-being, being able to get into your home at night or even feel safe. So that is my amendment. I think there needs to be I just recognized from our financial analyst who helped kind of prepare that the page number is actually 234 rather than 233. For those following at home, it is for our streets department. The increased proposal is 200,000, and I'm obviously the sponsor here. So we're not recommending a cut. The way I would handle this would be, because I think we could also recommend using ARPA money for this. My recommendation or my proposal would be a recommendation to the Board of VNA to find this either a space in the budget or to put this online at the top of the list for any unallocated ARPA money to allocate to this purpose, giving the purview to the Board of VNA to find a space in the budget for recognizing its importance. And with that, I'll turn it over to the committee for discussion. Alderwoman Boyd.
No discussion. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you very much. I definitely would love to see this happen. I think that we need to find the money for it, to suggest it, and which is, again, why I tried to find money for some of these things in our budget. And the need is definitely there. I have said as publicly and as often as I possibly can that if any dollar of ARPA funds come back to the board to reallocate, the first thing I'm going to ask for is funds for the water division, because I think it's important for the city to put any money that it can towards that as it looks at increasing rates for folks. So that would be, it depends how much, I guess, ARPA funds coming back, but I'm not going to suggest any sort of ARPA reallocation that isn't the water division first. So I'm not really sure how to vote on this, because I support it in terms of we need the money for this, but I don't know that I support suggesting increasing the budget without showing where it's coming from. So I'm really tripping over that. But I do support this. So again, I'm not quite sure how to vote on it. So I'll listen to the comments of the rest of the committee, and maybe you have a response to that.
Yeah, I'll just add a quick clarification. We don't have the authority to make ads even when we make corresponding cuts. So the way that those recommendations go to the Board of VNA, you know, they're usually, you know, just a set of recommendations. You know, we do have additional funds. We really have no authority to direct the Board of VNA to take any of our to take any ads. We do have the authority to make cuts. So any ads that we recommend to the Board of VNA are always, they're just recommendations. So my amendments here are just to provide a set of recommendations that the committee would like to see the Board of VNA find in the budget, and recognizing that these are, you know, small holes we'd like to hopefully fill.
Understood. Thank you. As long as we're just recommending it to be found in the budget and not saying anything about ARPA funds in the request. I guess we wouldn't be, because it's not the bill, so it's not corresponding at all, but all right. Thank you for that clarification. That's
Yeah,
all.
I take your point, Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderwoman Saunier.
I just don't understand what we're like, what this, I don't really understand what you're proposing or what we're voting on, because if all the ARPA money is allocated or set to be spent already, we're gonna pass the budget as is, it seems, because this isn't a cut. Where is this gonna, I don't understand what we're doing. If our authority relies on cutting, and then that's the way in which we have to make recommendations, just making a recommendation to ENAs, it kind of just to put it out there and let them know what we want, which, like, okay, but I don't know how fruitful that will be. Like, I don't see what that will yield. I'm just confused. I don't really understand.
So as part of our due diligence, Alderwoman Saunier, we never have the authority to make ads, even if we make cuts that are corresponding. The most that this committee or the Board of Aldermen can do with regards to the budget is to make recommendations on ads. You know, recognizing that the budget is fluid, you know, the Board of VNA meets, like, you know, dozens of times a year to make reallocations through the budget. The recommendations from this body are just recognition of what we see as important holes in the current budget. And they're just that, they're recommendations that we find this as a priority. We'd like you to consider finding this, you know, in the budget. It is not unprecedented, as I mentioned in an email, I guess, earlier this week or maybe last week, all the days sort of through this budget process. The enormous amount of work we've done have bleeded together, but really, you know, the budget director indicated that we can just make recommendations without having corresponding cuts. And the recommendation to the Board of VNA would be to, you know, because they have, those offices have so much more staff than we do, and so much more working knowledge because of that, and direct authority over the budget of each individual department to find what we would find important. Recognizing that any set of recommendations, even with corresponding cuts, are just that. If we make cuts, the Board of VNA can take our recommendations and throw them out the window and do whatever they want with them. I mean, technically speaking. So that's really all that I'm suggesting is, you know, I mean, there are so many holes in this budget that we've identified, from, you know, finding space for TOW to the secretaries for health departments to all these other pieces. You know, I just found these two.
I understand that.
Alderwoman, just for me to finish my thought here, thank you, would be that, you know, that these are just recommendations from us on the most egregious and small dollar amounts.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I understood everything you just said, as we've been meeting for 3 weeks to discuss it. I guess my question would be just, historically, does ENA, when you've made these recommendations before, has ENA, have they accepted those recommendations?
I have not served in this capacity before this year, so I will say, and you know, really, I don't have the I don't know each and every year moving backwards, but in speaking to the budget director on how we could proceed, you know, this was one path identified as a way through if we didn't identify or agree upon cuts. You know, I did a vote in favor of making a modest cut to the Board of Aldermen's budget to accommodate this. And, you know, I'm still just going to put this before the committee. If the committee doesn't want to make a recommendation to the Board of VNA to find $200,000 to replace streetlights. That is the purview of this committee, but I would not feel right moving forward without putting forward at least an opportunity to make an amendment or to make a recommendation to find what I consider a pretty small amount of money to get caught up on our street light repair.
Okay.
And Alderman Aldrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you talked to anybody on ENA about this as you've been working through this process of trying to find money for this?
I had a meeting scheduled with the president of the board. Unfortunately, our committee hearing went longer than she was able to meet and was unable to reschedule something. So, again, this is just a recommendation, Alderman.
I understand. I know, Madam Chair. I'm just
I'm
curious
always
if-
available from the Board of ENA. I've been here.
I'll just
So,
take that as a no.
Yeah.
I agree kind of with Alderwoman Schweitzer and Alderwoman Saulnier. Starting this committee, one thing that you told us that, we will have an opportunity to make a decrease, and we understand this board we can't do really increases. I think that's hopefully a change either the Charter Commission can make in the future, maybe an ordinance come down the line so that this board can do the decreases and increases. I think with all due respect, Alderwoman Schweitzer identified cuts and did the work to do that. And not just say increase, because if that was the case, my whole thought process for the last 3 weeks is that we at least had to have a corresponding cut. If we was able to just make an increase or recommendation, we could kind of do that as individual alder people. I think we were trying to. The reasons we was going through the budget for the last 3 weeks is to see maybe where some fat is. We just tried through the board of to try to cut the board of aldermen. It didn't work, but that's probably we could have had multiple different amendments. There's other spots that we could have made cuts, i.e. the police department. But I don't feel comfortable voting just to send something to ENA as a recommendation without actually doing the work to find a decreasing amendment. Just sending a recommendation, say, ENA, I support the idea and I support the amendment. I just don't feel comfortable voting on it, and there's no decreasing amendment just to send a recommendation to ENA.
I appreciate your perspective on that. As I indicated via email, this is a path that has been taken before. It's not unprecedented. And again, the Board of ENA moves money around all year round. And so really it's incumbent upon us to just make I believe, to make some recommendations when we see holes that need to be filled.
I understand.
That being said, I did.
What you were saying that I would go back to Alderwoman Saulnier's point.
Alderman, I'm sorry. I just want to layer in a little bit of decorum in our hearing space so that we just
responding back. Can I respond?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and let each member of the committee finish their thoughts, and then we can move on. So I just, again, this is a path that's identified. The committee does not have to agree to make a recommendation to the Board of ENA, but again, they make moves within the budget all year round. And I do think, it is our responsibility to consider recommendations, and the committee doesn't have to vote for it.
Okay, I didn't know my time was up. Only thing I know you was responding to what I said, and I thought I still had the floor, but I know this have been a path in the past, but going back to Alderwoman Saulnier's point then, what in the past have ENA accepted these pathways? That's the only thing I was going to say since I still had my time. Thank you. I recuse my time.
Thank you, Alderman. No, I think this committee has worked really well together and gotten very comfortable, and I think that's a good thing. I didn't mean to step on you in any way while you had the floor. And hearing that, if any member of the Board of Aldermen who's not a member of the committee wanted to weigh in, on what we have the ability. Again, this is just a simple recommendation. It's not a directive. It's just identifying a path that the Board of VNA could take and hopefully would consider. Alderman Browning, if you wanted to weigh in, or excuse me, Alderwoman Keyes has seniority.
Thank you. No comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Browning.
No comment from me this time either. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll take a vote on amendment. I think we're on amendment number 2, considering the Schweitzer amendment. The second one was not introduced. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Are we adopting anything or we're gonna make?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah, I move that we adopt amendment number 2. No, it's not that we adopt a recommendation. Yeah, I'm not sure how to actually consider that, but I think it would be Madam Clerk, do you have some guidance on that?
Sure, one moment.
Or do we adopt it as an amendment, recognizing that these are just simple recommendations?
For purposes of the drive, I'll just note that Spencer 1 with revised page number is the one that has the page corrected to 234.
Ryan, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. It would just be a recommendation. So you'll move to make a recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I renew my, I move that we make recommendation number 1 to the Board of VNA.
Recommendation number 2,
I think,
or I guess.
is it recommendation? I think yours was an amendment, given that it was a cut, Alderwoman Schweitzer. So Madam Clerk, is this recommendation number 1?
A recommendation to number 1 was the one that you did for the secretaries. Am I correct?
Okay.
The reduction
then-
for the secretaries?
Proposed increase to be recommended. Okay, I see your point. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for clarifying. So this is recommendation number 2.
Mhm.
Thank
And
you.
this, okay.
I move to adopt recommendation number 2 to Board Bill 1.
Second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye,
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich,
Present.
Chair Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg. We have 4 aye votes and 1 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The last amendment is just related to the pothole fund. This is from on page 233. It's all again in streets. 52200, and this is labeled in the budget as facility and ground supply. As our, I believe Jamie Wilson identified, we were discussing potholes. This is the material for potholes. The proposed budget was 900,000, and what was awarded was 700,000. I think, just recognizing the sheer volume of potholes, this is a material buy. There's an increase in the cost of pothole material, and this will just hopefully help us, better be positioned to fill the potholes that occur on an annual basis, just given how streets and function. So, the proposed recommendation would be to increase that by 200,000 so that we have the recommended materials for filling potholes. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions or comments from the committee. Alderwoman Boyd,
No questions.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
No questions.
Alderwoman Saunier,
No questions.
Alderman Aldrich.
No questions.
Were there questions from any members who are not members of the board who are not on the committee?
No questions.
Okay. Hearing that, I would like to move that we adopt recommendation number 3 to the city's budget.
Second,
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, was that second Switzer?
Yes.
Thank you. Alderwoman Boyd,
Pass.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Switzer,
aye.
Alderwoman Sanier,
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich,
Present.
Chair Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Alderwoman Spencer, for clarity, could you restate that?
What the amendment is?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yes. Page number 233, this is for streets. It's labeled, it's 522000 facility and ground supplies. Jamie Wilson indicated that this was the materials that the street department uses to fill potholes. The original ask was 900,000. The awarded amount was 700,000, which was equal to basically what was provided last year. We recognize there's an increase in cost of the supply and that they're, behind on pothole repair. So this would help, better position them to have the materials. It's just for materials needed to fill potholes.
Madam Chair, I think we have an incorrect page again.
Oh, do we? Okay. My apologies.
No, my apologies. 239.
239. Thank you for that clarification, Ryan. So, but it is 52200, the facility and ground supply line item, which is for the materials to put in the pothole.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, have we gone through the roll?
Well, before Alderwoman Boyd asked for clarity, I was asking for her vote. She
Aye.
voted. Okay. All right, we have 4 aye votes and 1 present.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I think I'll turn it over to the committee, but boy, this is the culmination of just a tremendous amount of work on behalf of our staff and all of our committee members. I think that we moved through an enormous amount of information here over the last several weeks with an extraordinary amount of dedication to hearing from our departments. I think, it's really worthwhile to commend our departments heads and our departments for coming before us and answering so many questions and just being willing to follow up and be present and, and to really participate in the process. I'm really grateful for Clerk Kennedy and Madam Clerk Ora, who, have done so much work just, being with us. And again, thanking STL TV and all the folks involved. But most especially, I have served on this committee in the past. This committee, the members here have really, really dug in. I think especially for the new alder people, Alderwoman Sonier and Alderman Aldrich, I have to just say, I am incredibly impressed with the amount of work that you've clearly done, even to get to this point, to be able to participate to the level you did as first time alder people. I mean, it is truly, truly confusing to go through our city's budget, even though our budget director is so thorough in all these books. These books are incredibly dense, and how it's organized is so complicated. So I commend you both for being new and being so willing to participate at the detail that we did, and having so much presence to be able to really dive in. So I thank you both for that. I thank my vice chair, Alderwoman Boyd, and Alderwoman Schweitzer for being so present through this. Ryan, you have done an incredible job helping us navigate so many questions, and we would be remiss to not thank the budget director, Paul Payne, for being so incredibly helpful and so incredibly available to all of us through this process. That if anybody has any closing thoughts to this enormous endeavor, this is probably the most intense committee to serve on, whether as, you know, it just has been a lot of time. And so I just thank you all so much. Even though we largely passed the budget as presented to us, and actually we are passing it with just a couple of very small recommendations to the Board of E&A. I think this work was invaluable and I'm really grateful for the time that we spent doing it. Do we have any closing thoughts from any other members of the committee? Alderwoman Boyd,
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
No, thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier,
No, thank you.
Alderman Aldrich.
No, thank you.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Budget and Public Employees Committee.
Motion to adjourn.
Did we
Second.
excuse? Did we excuse and then do the minutes?
We didn't have any minutes to approve today, Alderwoman, but I would entertain a motion to excuse the alderman from the second ward.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Saunier,
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich,
Aye.
Chair Spencer.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
Okay, with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Previous row.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Yeah, that works. All right, thank you.
Thank you.